What's going on, people? Another day, more cards get reviewed, more cards get talked about, more cards keep getting revealed. We're gonna keep doing our thing. So, I got 6 cards, I think, on deck today, and you guys already know how we do it. Ratings from 1 to 5, depending on various things, how powerful the card overall, if it'll drive new decks, if it's just bonkers. Even a card that's bonkers but doesn't fit in any decks yet could still potentially get a 5-star rating, but it's got to be pretty powerful for that to happen. But let's get on into it. First up, we've got Flaming Breath. It's a 2-cost action. Prophecy, deal 1 damage to everything. So this is kind of an interesting card. We have Fireball, which is deal 1 power or 1 damage to all opposing minions and face. So it doesn't hurt your own guys. So it costs half or twice as much as Flaming Breath. Flaming Breath also has Prophecy. The reason why Flaming Breath intrigues me is it's half the cost. So again, if you're very aggressive, you don't really care about dealing damage to your own face. So this could even be a benefit for something like Prophecy Aggro Battle Mage. Although you don't want to kill your own creatures, you don't care about dealing damage to your own face. So a 2 magic could deal 1 damage to face and potentially clear some guards is potentially good. But you've also got the added Prophecy bonus. So while you're cracking your own runes, you could potentially play this for free. And the memer in me very much enjoys that this has synergy in something like a self-damage warrior. Flaming Breath allowing you to self-damage your own creatures and possibly get like a board-wide +2 with Fighters Guild Hall is very intriguing to me. That being said, I don't think this fits into most decks. Maybe a very action-heavy or completely action deck could run this, or only the most aggressive decks that don't really care about keeping a board presence and just kind of want to keep pushing face damage at all times are going to want to run this type of card. And like I said, those self-damage warrior variants. Other than that, I think this card's going to kind of struggle a little bit to find a home. It's one of those things where you're going to experiment with it in a lot of different decks. I don't know if it ultimately makes the cut in any of them besides self-damage warrior. And even self-damage warrior is pretty crowded with the self-damage effects, but I think this will be a welcome one, being that only Cradle Crush and Skaven are like the best ways of dealing damage to yourself. So I think this card will ultimately make the cut in that kind of list, but in the rest of the decks, I think this probably gets left out. So for that, that's probably enough to give this like a 2-star rating. But it's one that I want to keep my eye on, because it's one of those cards that's like kind of seems innocuous, but I think it could be kind of a sneaky riser at some point. Next up, we've got Bitterfish Witch. And I just want to say, this is the second one I think we've got, or this is the third goblin I think we're going to look at, and I think there's another, at least one in this session we're going to talk about. I love the goblins that they have revealed in this expansion. Not just the effects, because like we have that 3 Magicka 1/3 that reduces a creature's health to 1. That's a unique and cool effect. We've got the legendary we saw that gains any __ as ++ to him. So like all of these cards have pretty cool effects, but also the design, the look of them, like these are, I think, the best designed cards in the expansion so far. They're interesting. They all tie together to give the Goblin Tribal kind of a theme here of just focusing on the __. And I know it's always been a thing, but they're kind of going even more into it. And just the look and everything, I love these Goblin cards. So here we've got a 3 Magicka 2/2 with Prophecy and Summon, give a creature -1/-1. So the closest comparison is probably Murkwater Witch. Murkwater Witch is a 2 Magicka 1/1 guard that gives a creature -1/-1. So this kind of fits right into that kind of theme. And again, if goblins are going all in on the __ and kind of being like an aggressive while also debuffing your opponent kind of deck, I think that's a pretty cool idea to be in. This being a 3 Magicka 2/2 kind of puts it on a similar playing field to like Moonface Soothé in stats, where Soothé draws a card and is a 2/2. However, this can be played as a Prophecy, which this Prophecy kind of offsets Soothé's +1/+1 and Drain. They obviously fill different roles, but I think that's the closest comparison to this card directly. As far as the direct comparison to Murkwater Witch, this costs 1 more, but gets +1/+1. Doesn't have guard, but gains Prophecy. So I think in a lot of cases, this is a better card than that. As far as like the mid-range type of thing goes, this card would really enjoy 1 more stat point. But 1 more stat point on a Prophecy probably makes this card too good. Like, if this was like even a 2-3, I mean, a 3-2 would be ideal, but even a 2-3, you're slapping this into a ton of decks because it's just really, really good. So I think 2-2 is probably appropriate stat-wise for this card. Like I said, I love it. I think it's pretty strong. I don't think it's crazy, crazy strong. It's probably in like that 3-star range, but a okay statted creature that has a curse effect on a body can be pretty decent in like a mid-range mirror or even an aggressive mirror, but I don't think this is quite an aggressive card. But yeah, I think this card at a minimum is like a 3-star card, and it's pushing Goblin Tribal to come back. And even if Goblin Tribal comes back as a non-hyper aggro deck, I'd still love to play Goblins again, so I'm very excited by this card. Next up, we've got Dust Eater Skirmisher. Now, if you heard me talk about TESL before, one of my biggest things that I say about this game is the game does not have enough playable 1-drops. This is in the running as one of the most playable 1-drops. You got a 1 magic, a 2/1, and whenever Dust Eater Skirmisher takes damage from a creature, give that creature -1/-1. So, what does that mean? This card can kill any 1-drop in the game, besides Word Wall, but this will kill it over 2 turns. Even like the 1/3s, like Deepwood Trapper, this would trade into it. It's a 2/1, so Deepwood Trapper would be left as a 1/1, and then this guy's effect would kick in, give Deepwood Trapper -1/-1, and it dies. But that's not all. This card, similar to, what's the card called? The 1 magic, a 2/1, the blue one that generates the dagger. Similar to that, this card can trade into basically any 2-drop and a lot of 3-drops. Not all of them, but almost any 2-drop and a lot of 3-drops for your 1-drop is amazing. This is a great card to start that Goblin Tribal deck. I think it'll fit into a lot of non-Goblin decks as well, just because a 1-drop that can potentially trade up with 2s and 3s is incredible. 2/1 is as aggressively statted as a 1-drop is going to get. I think this is a really, really good card. I think we're going to see a lot of this card moving forward. I think it's probably around like the 3.5 to 4-star range. It's not like a crazy bonkers OP card, but this is the level of strength that I think 1-drops need to be played in this game, and it's cool to see one finally here. Next up, we've got a reveal from Warp Meta, Miscarkened Lich. We got another skeleton, so all you Skelly fans can rejoice. It's a 4 magic, a 3/5 with the summon effect. Choose an enemy creature. At the start of your turn, if the chosen creature is alive, summon a 1/1 Risen Dead with guard in its lane. So this is weird. Like, you're giving your opponent free guards. And I don't know why you'd want to do that. Oh no, in your lane. Never mind. I was like, what? Why would you want to do that? Even still, it's still a little bit of a weird card. So it can act as token generation, which I guess is good for skeleton decks that want to go wide. The 3/5 body is pretty decent. It means it doesn't die to any of the damage-based removal that you're going to see until the much later turns. 3 attack isn't the best, but like I said, 5 health means you can survive some trades with 3 and 4 drops, and you don't die to Lightning Bolt or Crushing Blow or any of those cards. Yeah, outside of targeting something like, I don't know, Black Hand Messenger that's not going to be dying anytime soon, this effect I don't think is going to be super relevant often, unless you're trying to force your opponent to trade in a certain creature so that you stop generating 1/1s. But overall, 1/1s aren't super concerning. I guess it's pretty decent in an aggro mirror to try and entice your opponent to trade. I feel like I'm kind of underrating this card. Like, the ability to generate 1/1 guards is probably one that I'm overlooking a little bit. I know it's not great overall, but just that little extra, like even 1 or 2 tokens of value might be enough to make this card playable. I don't think it'll be playable in a ton of decks. It's not unique, so maybe that's something it has going for it. And it fits in a decent slot in skeleton decks, because outside of Skeleton Champion, there's not a ton of great 4-drops. I actually often run Restless Templar just because there's not a lot of other better options. So I think this card's probably like a 2.5-star card. Like, nothing crazy, but I feel like there'll be some times where you'll be able to find some value from this card. Next up, we've got Painted World. Oh, forgot to open it. It's a 12-cost action. Costs 2 less for each attribute you have in play. and also costs 2 less if you have a neutral card in play, and summon a painted troll in each lane when you cast it. A painted troll is a 4 magic, a 4/4 with regenerate, and it becomes a random attribute. So, you know how I'm always talking about how Unite the Houses is going to get scarier and scarier? Now we have the potential mega high roll. Yikes. Now, I don't want to claim, I'm not trying to like doom and gloom that Unite the Houses is all of a sudden going to get hyper consistent. However, even disregarding the neutral requirement, if you just play your cheap tricolor card, you know, your Guildsworn Apprentice, the 1/2 guy, most tricolors, I think all tricolors have a 2-drop that they can play. That automatically discounts this card to 6. So even a 6 Magicka summon 2 4/4s with Regenerate is pretty good, especially in Unite the Houses where you need to survive, so you have Regenerators that fight for the board in each lane. And then you have the chance of them high rolling the exact colors that you need. I know I watched Charmer play a lot of his Unite the Houses deck, and his one, I think it's, what is it, Dominion? It only needs to find red in general in order to set up a consistent Unite. So even getting 1 or 2 of these off, you don't care in general what you're pulling because you're just looking for 1 red creature. And that's not counting the neutral cards that you can get in play. So obviously this is a huge boon for Unite decks, and I hate this card for that. However, even just a regular tricolor card in play, ignoring the neutral, so this card costs 6, getting 2 4/4s of the Generate is pretty similar to Golden Saint. I think Guard is obviously better than Regenerate. However, this card has no condition on it besides having things in play, whereas Golden Saint can be a little bit more tricky to trigger. But this card is at least on a similar power level to Golden Saint on that front, and if you can get another attribute or even a neutral card in play, this card can become better than Golden Saint because it can be a 4 Magicka or 2 Magicka summon 2 4/4s, and that's very, very good. However, I hate this card because it helps Unite the Houses out. I don't think this card is crazy, crazy strong, but it's solid. I think it's another like 2.5 star card. You really need to have the correct type of deck to set this up. But again, anything that helps Unite the Houses, I'm very unhappy about. But apparently this was a really cool quest in Oblivion, so I'm glad that this is a card for the hardcore Oblivion fans out there. And finally, Marooned Dagon's Seducer. Not the Razor. I know the Razor is an artifact. This is a 4 Magicka 3/6 Daedra with Breakthrough and Drain. So obviously, this amount of stats on a 4-drop is very, very strong, and these are 2 very good keywords. There's only one thing going against this card, and that's that yellow's 4-drop slot is hyper, hyper competitive. You've got Hive Defender, you've got Cloudrest Illusionist, you've got Emperor's Blade if you're playing that, you've got Black Dragon, you've got... there's just a lot of cards that compete in the 4-drop slot, and that's not counting the actions you may be playing in those slots, depending on what colors you're running. You know, this would cross up with Lightning Bolts, with Edicts of Azura. There's just a lot of competition at the 4-drop slot. So this card may potentially fall out just because of competition and not because of quality. Because quality-wise, I think this is a very strong card. A 3/6 is, again, great stat lines. Drain can be just as good, if not better than Guard sometimes. So I guess depending on your deck, this could potentially be better than a Hive Defender. Hive Defender obviously is great for blocking a bunch of things. But if your opponent has nothing on the board, Hive Defender can't heal you, whereas this card can. And we've seen a whole bunch of ways this expansion, and I think there's even one card I haven't reviewed yet, that can give your creatures +1/+1 in Guard. So I'd much rather give a 3/6 with Breakthrough and Drain +1/+1 in Guard versus a 3/6 with just Guard +1/+1 in Guard. So I think this fits into, if you're going to be running any of those cards that can give your friendly creatures Guard, I think this is a more natural inclusion than Hive Defender in those lists, just because this has its own keywords and then benefits from that buff better than a Hive Defender can. However, I think this is just another case of like high quality card that might not see play, not because it's not good enough, but because there's so much competition in that slot. However, I would still give this card like a 3 to 3.5 star rating. I think this is the kind of card that easily could come out of nowhere and wind up being a pseudo staple. But again, that 4-drop slot in yellow is so competitive, it's going to be tough to crack through and make it into lists. But yeah, I mean, if you've got a portal out, this can be a 3 Magicka 4/7 with Breakthrough and Drain, and that's crazy. So you shouldn't be discounting the Daedra tag there. This can get very, very strong. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comment section what you would rate these cards, which ones you're most excited to play with, which ones you think I got wrong, all that jazz. Let me hear it down below. As always, thank you guys all very much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.